Welcome back to The Agenda with your Missoula County Commissioners. I'm Josh Slottick, and I'm joined here by my friends and fellow commissioners Dave Strohmeyer and Juanita Vero. And today, we have a very special guest, Andrew Hagemeier, who's what's your official title, Andrew?
The Community and Economic Development Director.
Excellent.
For Missoula County.
Great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, I'm glad everybody is here. Who wants to kick this off?
Yeah, I'll just jump right in with what's the most confusing thing about your office? Not the physical
architecture.
Let's talk about
labyrinth of hallways.
Yeah, so not the physical space itself, but our office manages two different programs. One is the 5, now 6 targeted economic development districts in Missoula County, which is a mechanism of tax increment financing, and then our county housing program. So housing is easy to explain. I still have not figured out a way to explain what I do to my mother regarding tax increment financing.
So is there a broader, though, just economic development component? Since targeted economic development districts are a tool for economic development.
Yeah, I mean, I get involved with all sorts of things, that deal with general economic development. It's really, when it comes to economic development, generally across the county, it's a lot of partnerships. We have some really good partner organizations that also focus on economic development, and I'm really involved with those organizations. Like
what's an example?
Missoula Economic Partnership. Yeah. I mean, I am interacting with them practically on a daily basis, including right after this. I run over there. Yeah.
Wait, let's go back to your mom. How do you explain what a TED is?
I've been trying to simplify how I explain this because it is so complicated, but it's a mechanism to finance infrastructure that local governments have, to finance public infrastructure. So things like roads, sewer, water, sidewalks, and
broadband?
Technically, I think broadband might be. We haven't done that as far as I know in Missoula County. But maybe we have, but not since I've been around. It's a really unique tool because most of the financing mechanisms that counties have to fund public infrastructure, we have to raise new revenues, correct? Right? So we have to go out and we have to ask the taxpayer for money. We have to go out and ask the user for money. But this is unique in state law because what it allows us to do is actually leverage future tax dollars. So instead of having to ask for new monies, we get to borrow against future tax revenue. How this might work in the real world is development team wants to put in a new road to access their property so they can develop it. This will be a public road, open to the public. This is typically how it works, is they self-finance that construction. So they go to the bank and they get a loan to build that road. Building that road then allows these lots to be developed. Those lots get developed. The property taxes, right, the value of those property goes up. What the tax increment finance district says is that new value created by that development stays within that district. So the bank knows that we're going to have this future tax base, and we're able to go out and get a bond to pay back that infrastructure.
Can I give this a shot in total layperson language? And
wasn't that layperson language?
Almost. let me.
What's your mom's name?
Yeah, Gretchen.
So let me give this a shot and fill it in.
Yeah.
So I think of this as the TED is the place.
Yeah.
Targeted Economic Development District. In the city, it's a URD, an Urban Renewal District.
Correct.
It's a district. It's a place. You draw a circle on a map, and everything inside that circle is inside the TED. The mechanism is the TIF, tax increment financing. So we're using a combination of place and time. We just described the place. The time is we set a baseline for taxes. We're going to say the year 2024. And in this mythical district here, it's as big as this piece of printer paper. In 2024, the property taxes that came out of this for all jurisdictions equaled $1 million. In 2025, changes happened. Somebody built something, values went up. Now it's $1.1 million. That new $100,000 does not go back to the taxing jurisdictions. Instead, it stays in a fund to be used on infrastructure projects inside that district.
Yep.
And this mechanism remains in place for a set amount of time, 20 years or so. And that's basically how it works. And when you mention bonding, in my mind, if we get $100,000 this year and we use and we build some roads or build some sewer, build some whatever, that's going to spur or catalyze more development, and we'll see property values go up. And we could borrow against those, as you're saying, those future increases in property taxes and use that bond to do really big things like build an arterial road grid or bring sewer throughout the district.
Yep.
And basically, the property owners in that district are bankrolling the infrastructure
Exactly. And as Andrew said, not with new money. They're paying the same taxes they would otherwise. Taxes don't go up.
Right.
It's just that the amount that goes up each year doesn't go back to the jurisdictions to be used for whatever. That increment, that amount that goes up, stays in a fund to be used only inside this district for a small set of purposes.
Yeah, just for public infrastructure. And basically that $100,000, it went from 1 million to 1.1 million.
Yeah.
We then know we're getting $100,000 for the life of that district, right? So we're bonding on that future tax dollar.
And we know that.
What are the risks then? So, I mean, future can be unpredictable. So then,
what
are the safeguards?
So the state doesn't allow us to bond if we don't have the money. But you could have a meteorite hit Missoula and wipe out all the property in that area, and then the property values would be zero.
There's the Yellowstone supervolcano.
Yeah, supervolcano.
We would at least need the increment to cover the debt service.
It's required.
So basically, we would be taking out a loan to pay for the infrastructure, and the payment on that loan
is the increment.
Is the increment.
It's the future.
The
exactly.
increment's the debt service.
And which is so much different than other ways to fund public infrastructure. And so we're able to use these TEDs, these districts, this geographic area, for some really unique situations. Like someone might say the difficult properties.
Blighted properties.
Let's put infrastructure deficient properties that pose some big obstacles.
Let's put a face on this and maybe use a success story. Because there is this targeted economic development district that we just had some lengthy discussions on recently, and we can talk about that too out by Grant Creek. But maybe pick one of your favorite success stories of a TED.
Bonner?
Yeah, Bonner. Bonner's a perfect example. We had a stud mill there, right? I think they did studs. Wasn't it like the
plywood?
Plywood and studs.
It was. I think their planer facility at one point was the largest planer mill in the entire world. Right? There were hundreds. I think close to 1,200 jobs there. When I was a kid, it was in the 800. It was like 800 range. Right? That closed in something like 2006, 2008. It sat there kind of vacant for a few years. Some folks from Missoula stepped in and said they bought it and they wanted to reinvigorate this location as a industrial center because it's perfect for that. Right? With the infrastructure it has there. They, with the county, created a tax increment finance district, a targeted economic development district for the Bonner Mill. And so that has led to improvements that have then led to job creation, Kettle House amphitheater, so community benefits, things that have really changed the course of...
Not to mention the Kettle House beer.
The beer.
Yeah, there's the beer and there's the
beer and music. And there are more jobs there today than there were in the last few years that the mill was running.
And I would say that's really important that there are more jobs. It's also important that these jobs are diverse across industries, and that economic system is, by definition, more resilient. It's not hanging on a thread based on one set of economic circumstances related to the wood products industry, which is fantastic. We love the wood products industry, but there's, I don't know how many, 6, 8 different industries represented out there.
At least. I can't even, last time we did a tour of their facility, I can't even count.
It's so impressive.
I mean, and they're making candy there.
Yeah. Candy and soap and siding and trailers and other stuff too. It's a little microcosm of a diverse economy.
Yeah. So
and one most recent examples, I think, of effectively using the tax increment there was to help with the removal of some of the contaminated soil that was kind of stockpiled.
3 acres.
I love the
3
name
acre
for it.
pile.
It was called the repository.
The repository.
It could be a repository of any. It could be like antique books. Or
3
something.
acres.
Who knows what it was?
3 acres of pollution, right? And how that worked is the landowner financed the removal of that to the tune of, I think,
$4 million.
It was millions of dollars, right? Yeah. They were able to do that. They were able to go get a loan to be able to do that because the county had the tax increment finance district. They're able to get a cheaper loan. The tax increment finance district is their collateral. It's the difference between getting a home equity loan and a personal loan. You're going to get a better loan when you have collateral. Well, the tax increment is the collateral. The bank can see that. Mm-hmm. They give them a lower interest rate loan. They clean it up. And then we're able to use the tax increment to pay for that.
Yeah, we just toured a new building on that site.
Yeah.
Huge building.
Yeah, and so now we're able to use that 3 acres of wasteland in 2031 when the TED expires, and all of that tax revenue goes back into the general circulation, as I like to call it.
And that's an important piece, I think, with all of this is that I guess for some of the critics of this tool or mechanism, they're assuming that development and redevelopment would occur without this tool being utilized. And if that were the case, by all means, let development evolve on its own. But in some of these instances,
but targeted is the operative word.
Well, I would say the same thing would likely have played out with the Grant Creek Crossing TED, in that were it not for a tool being utilized like a TED, we would likely decades from now still see a gravel pit or
there's a reason it was vacant for 15 years.
Exactly.
In a much more lucrative market to develop too, right? So, I mean, we're talking about much lower interest rates. I just was at the City Club and they were talking about how the cost of development has increased, just materials and labor has increased by 30 to 50% since 2019. Yeah. And
that's incredible.
Incredible.
Wow.
These were construction companies and developers saying this, that this is the type of inflation they've seen. This idea that all public infrastructure is developer financed, none of this would exist if the public wasn't contributing towards putting in roads, sewer, water. In some of these projects, the developer can make it work without any tax increment financing, but there are spaces where it just doesn't work.
So we have great examples across our community of TEDs and URDs being successful in catalyzing development. We see it all around downtown. We can see it in Midtown, see it in Bonner. We're going to see it at the Y. And yet, for sure, our state legislature is going to have tax increment financing squarely in the crosshairs this legislative session. Why do you think that is, and do you have any predictions on what they're going to try and do?
It's not really fully understanding how this tool works and buying into these misconceptions. I mean, obviously it's property taxes, and people think it raises property tax, and it does not, as we've already covered, it does not do that. The tax rate does not change because of a TED or a URD.
So when people are saying that, what are they really meaning? I mean, are they trying to say that schools, fire departments aren't going to be funded while the TED is expanding, or those 20 years? Or what are they really trying to get at?
So all of our financing tools that we use in local government, where we're using tax dollars. I mean, every single one, right? Or a loan, or not a loan, a grant, which is still tax dollars, right? I mean, it's just coming from the state or the feds. We're all paying into it. None of them are perfect. They can't be perfect. Like, everyone's going to complain about some sort of public funding. So in this situation, it's a known downside, a no challenge to tax increment financing that we don't hide from, that it freezes the taxable value of an area for the other taxing jurisdictions,
including of 2024. That's the base. It's for the next 20 years, we're going to collect taxes. We at the county are going to collect taxes as if it's 2024, even if it's 2028.
Right.
And as that area develops, we at the county are responsible for making sure that the folks who live in that area get public safety, have access to the criminal justice system, can visit the health department, can deal with permitting, can enjoy free and fair and well-run elections, all the services that we provide. And yet our revenue is frozen at 2024 level. So there's the pinch.
And we basically have to go through this pinch for the lifespan of the TED, because what happens is let's take Grand Creek Crossing. If we don't do this, right, that probably stays a gravel pit for 15 more years, and in 15 more years we're still talking about how to develop this property, right? But we can create this TED, we can fund the infrastructure.
Folks might not know what Grant Creek Crossing is. That's 86 acre. Here, go ahead and explain.
Yeah, you just created it last week. It's a new targeted economic development district up on Reserve Street right off of I-90. It's a closed gravel pit now. It's been reclaimed. It's just a big knapweed field. So we're going to invest through the TED to build water sewer roads that's going to enable a much higher intensity development. Could have ever occurred there without water sewer and roads, if any development would occur there without water sewer and roads. When that TED expires, that investment is going to generate significant more tax revenue than if we would have done nothing. And that is then permanent forever.
And that is the key premise, is that this development would not occur were it not for leveraging these increment dollars back into the infrastructure.
There's two returns on this public investment. One of them is the additional tax revenue that comes from the development that would not happen were it not for the TED. The second return is the development itself, where there are new jobs created, more money put into the economy, more activity, more vibrancy, more of all of what economics
The state of
does.
Montana benefits through additional sales tax. Not sales tax.
Yeah, that's
Holy smokes!
People get twitchy.
We just started a sales tax.
Income tax.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's unique about the Grand Creek Crossing property is it's 86 acres in essentially 3 or 4 parcels, and it's right on two major transportation networks, North Reserve, I-90. And it's essentially, surrounded by urban footprint. So it's in the middle of our urban landscape. And those types of properties are essentially non-existent. They are found way out of town, greenfield type stuff, right? So miles away from town. That presents the opportunity to actually do an infill project that targets larger, like uses that require a larger footprint than you would be able to get in downtown or in midtown or another. Pretty much very few places left in the city are that are like that. So what will likely happen here with Grant Creek Crossing is they will attract tenants that are from the Midtown area, for example, of Missoula, that are looking to expand. Yeah. So they want to grow their business. But, they're on a 3-acre lot in the middle of, they have no options.
Midtown, you can't go anywhere.
Right. Yeah. So they're going to be able to relocate to this location rather than 10 miles out of town in a greenfield site, right? Which then opens up that parcel in Midtown also for redevelopment, right? So we're kind of getting this, this is pretty unique that we're getting this 2-for-1 out of it almost, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
Is there any ability for us to help direct the type of development that will occur within a TED?
We do have a little bit of that. I mean, obviously the zoning.
Zoning is our tool.
Yeah, but there's a little bit more that there are parameters within the state law on TED, and it's for industry is one category of use, and then it also goes towards uses that support our tourism and recreation industry in Montana. So that was a change that the legislature made, I think 2 sessions ago, recognizing that tourism and recreation was the largest sector in our economy in the state of Montana now. Now counties can use TEDs to help support our tourism and recreation.
What does that
What's an
look
example?
like?
Yeah.
REI. Could be a tour, like they're supporting. So
an industry that
works.
Okay.
Or say a car mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Tourism.
Yeah, because you need car mechanics to support your tourism industry, because when someone gets a flat tire, they need to call AAA and get towed, right?
So
what couldn't go there then?
Off the top of my head, I mean, like an office, accountant. I mean, they can locate there, but they can't benefit from the tax increment financing. So an accountant doesn't necessarily, you maybe make a
but
hard stretch.
But REI uses accountants?
They can have, like anyone can have an accountant, but the purpose of their business is recreation, right? But an accountant necessarily
I don't want to go to too far down this road, because it's not just tourism and recreation, it's industry.
It's industry.
Yeah.
Industry. So
it's like a brewery.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the legislature is going to take aim at TIF as a mechanism, and TEDs and URDs as spaces. Why? And you said it was a bit of misunderstanding. And then what? What are they going to try and do? What's your prediction?
I think they're going to try to restrict the definitions to be smaller, right? So less flexibility. Some of that might be good. I'm not afraid of changes. I think it's good to look in the mirror and reflect on what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and if something's not making sense, to fix it. So
is there an example anywhere in the state with the?
Well, I think what I've heard the one thing they might do is you're currently, when a TED expires, it's counted as new taxable value.
Oh, yes.
There are 2 ways, and you're going to be able to explain this a lot better than me.
And that's exactly, Juan just said it. That's a really big deal, because if it's newly taxable, it's outside of our mill cap, which is the amount of money that we can generate from the entirety of the whole county, not from any one property. And our mill cap right now is half the 3-year average of inflation, which is not enough money to remain in operation. If we could only go up by half the rate of inflation, we wouldn't remain open, given that we buy asphalt and electricity and fuel and people's time at the full rate of inflation. The only reason we remain in operation and not going backwards annually is because we have newly taxable property. And if we see huge value increase in a TED, which is what happens, and it's not newly taxable, it's pretty hard limiting when that thing comes due as to the revenue required by the county to actually meet the needs of the folks who live in that space.
There you go. Another change I think we might see is a push to exempt more and more levies.
And make it mandatory as opposed to what we did the other day, where in a discretionary manner.
Could you describe that? What does that mean to, think of your mom? What does it mean to exempt a levy?
Yeah, so basically, what we did with Grant Creek Crossing is we got some comments from the fire district and the school districts about how, we're not going to get the benefit from the increased revenues, and we've got costs that we've got to worry about too. And so we, in this situation, we kind of knew what the infrastructure costs were going to be within this location and what might or might not work. And we were able to determine that if we reduce some levies, and we reduced the levies, I think, by about 12% of the increment. And so that was like 40% of the fire district's levies and 25% of the school district's levies we exempted, that we can still make this project work, right?
Meaning that the public infrastructure can still be paid for.
There'll still be enough money to do sewer, water, road,
and so what we mean by exempting levies is that the school district's levies will get taxed. They'll be able to use their taxes on this new development like they always do, right? It doesn't get withheld.
Instead of that money being withheld in the increment, it goes back to the jurisdiction.
Yeah, and so, they're posing to actually gain quite a bit because this development wouldn't happen without this TED. So they're getting a nice little bump out of it. But the danger of doing that statewide is every area is different. Mm-hmm. Every area has different infrastructure needs. Every area has different development potential and development costs. And so if we do that blanket across the entire state, it's definitely going to make some of these situations not workable.
Yep. Yeah. Not workable means they're not going to develop at the fast pace they would if the TIF was in place.
Yeah, and here we are, right? What are we, like the 6th fastest growing state in the country or something like that? Or cities, counties, jurisdictions across the state are absolutely struggling to keep up with infrastructure demands and the growth we're experiencing. And we also are way behind on the amount of housing we need to provide. And
speaking of which, that is a relatively recent change with TEDs. I remember a point in time where there was no opportunity to have a housing component.
Yeah, so not all the changes that we might see at the legislature are bad, right? So there are good changes, too, that come out of the legislature, allowing it for recreation and tourism and one. But in the last session, they now allow you to use tax increment financing to support permanently affordable housing, not market rate housing,
but workforce housing.
But workforce housing, yeah. Specifically, they say workforce housing now.
And the piece on affordability is yet to be defined. It's kind of wide open.
Yeah, and it will be up to us to define. And workforce housing is different in Missoula than it is in Jordan.
And I'm really glad that the legislature left that flexibility, as you just said. Different places, it means affordability means something really different.
So we've yet to take advantage of that in Missoula County. We need to make that work. We have to have a development project. A developer saying, I'm building permanently affordable housing and I need some help.
One ththing across the board, allow for greater flexibility. Another, to make a one-size-fits-all for the state that is more restrictive.
Yeah. And so, it'll be interesting to see how the session plays out. And, there's a lot of folks out there that across a lot of different economic sectors that see the value of tax increment financing. And
there is some controversy around it, but interestingly, the controversy is in no way red v. blue.
Right.
This is not about partisanship. It doesn't hit any culture war buttons or anything like that. It's its own animal.
Yeah, it's interesting that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do the nugget.
Are we really already?
We are already at the nugget of wisdom.
We've beaten the TED horse to death. Is there anything?
Poor TED horse.
Ted the horse.
Is there anything else you want to make sure that we get on here?
And specifically about TEDs, I think we've probably touched everything I can think of.
Just want to mention that we don't just make these decisions. We have a group of volunteers who have subject matter expertise called the Missoula Development Authority that meet regularly and mull on these things and ask hard questions of everyone involved and then make recommendations to us. And we depend on that board in a similar way that the city uses MRA, but different in that.
What's MRA?
Missoula Redevelopment Authority in the city, but different in that we ultimately make the decisions. Yeah. We listen to recommendations from the MDA and we value their insight.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Well, okay, before we close, can you share with us a good book you've read or a nugget of wisdom you've come across lately? Podcast, song, poem?
As a planner, right? That's where I identify professionally as a land use planner. I would really, and especially in knowing the changes that are occurring in Montana right now, I recommend reading Montana High, Wide, and Handsome.
So good.
Yeah. That's
from like 1947?
It absolutely is. It is incredibly beautifully written. It really provides insight to where we are, like how we got to where we are as a state, even though it was written in the 40s. And I think with all the changes that are occurring with this in the state,
1937.
Holy cow, as relevant today as it's ever been. So Montana, High, Wide, and Handsome.
Joseph Kinsey Howard.
Yeah.
Is that the author? Yeah, I couldn't remember the author's name.
Hey, Andrew,
in the 20th century. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was it's always fun.
You breathe life into tax increment finance.
Okay, we got to figure.
I'll let my mom know.
Out what
That's what I'll tell her I do.
He's a life breather.
What does she tell her friends that you do?
I don't know what she's telling them now. I mean, she just
he works for the county.
Yeah. She just knows she has to pay her property tax bill, and that's about what her understanding of property taxes. So,
well, thanks so much for coming by.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Agenda. If you enjoy these conversations, it would mean a lot if you'd rate and review the show on whichever podcast app you use.
And if you know a friend who would like to keep up with what's happening in local government, be sure to recommend this podcast to them.
The Agenda with the Missoula County Commissioners is made possible with support from Missoula Community Access Television, better known as MCAT, and our staff in the Missoula County Communications Division.
If you have a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email it to communications@missoulacounty.us.
To find out other ways to stay up to date with what's happening in Missoula County, go to missoula.co/county updates.
Thanks for listening.